Hello, wonderful humans. It's been a hot minute since I was on here saying hello, and I wanted to just do a little bit of a video today about a combination of a few different things. So I wanted to acknowledge Sinead O'Connor's passing this week. I also wanted to talk about life cycles because I feel that that's actually quite important and part of this. And I also want to talk and speak to a little bit about how we can absorb energy and how it's important to know what's ours and what's not ours. And then, of course, there'll be a little bit of astro nuggets and astro wisdom in this as well. So it's a little bit of a combination of things. So I'm out for a drive. I'm down in Wicklow. It's rainy and I look tired. So apologies. I've been at a wedding this weekend, so I'm kind of still a little bit tired from that. But what I wanted to talk to was we lost an icon this week, an Irish icon, Sinead O'Connor. And I'm personally kind of surprised at how much it's affected me personally, or how much it seems to be sitting in the back of my head a little bit. Because obviously I would have grown up with Sinead O'Connor, that iconic song "Nothing Compares to You," and all of her other amazing songs and excuse me, amazing artwork that she's created through the years as well. But where I live in Dublin, she lives only 2 minutes up the road from me. I would have seen her in my local supermarket actually reasonably often, with her and her kids as well. Um, and in some ways and in many ways, I didn't follow her. As in I never followed her online, not physically in person because that would just be weird. But I didn't totally follow her journey, but I also didn't not. I suppose I don't look at a lot of mainstream media, so I didn't see a lot of her work. I will also say, as a woman, and I've had this conversation with a number of women over the last couple of weeks, even months, whatever. I feel personally that I haven't really taken a strong interest in my own history of women here in Ireland. And I've never really, it's interesting because I've been curious, but I also have never delved into it. And I'm going to go off on several tangents today, so stay with me because there'll be some interesting nuggets here. But one of the things I feel has contributed to the reason that I've not been interested in my own history has been I grew up, as an 80s/90s child, and our history books didn't have any Irish women in it, didn't have any women in it, full stop. And I never was aware of this. I, honest to God, was never aware of this until really recently when a good friend of mine, Belinda Vigers, who is doing a project called the Women of Ireland Project. It's an incredible project, and you should totally check it out. Just type in the Women of Ireland Project, Belinda Vigers. And it's through her work and through the weaving of, I suppose, other people's work coming into my world that I'm slowly reclaiming that interest in my history as a woman, and not in a feminist way, because I feel that that's actually totally put me off looking at history also, because I'm not an activisty feminist. I'm not against men. We need men. We need the masculine feminine polarity. But I am now becoming curious as to how we got to where we came from. And I know I'm on a bit of a tangent, but this does weave into Sinead O'Connor to a certain extent, and also the cycles, which I'll talk about now as well. Because Sinead O'Connor's passing made me realise that subconsciously, whether intentionally or not intentionally, subconsciously, when Sinead O'Connor spoke out, whether it was against the Catholic Church, whether it was against abuse, whether it was against whatever it was against, whenever she spoke out, she was absolutely ridiculed. She was absolutely ridiculed. The media completely took her down and made her out to be a crazy person. And it no doubt had a massive effect on her own mental health and her own inner stability. Like, that woman not only had an incredible voice, which was completely tapping into a collective pain that we all feel, and a collective beauty that we all feel as well. But Sinead O'Connor spoke for things that we couldn't have dared to speak about. And to be honest with you, that really, in many ways, growing up in Catholic Ireland, with history books that really only give the history of men and really only give the history of, the points of view and perspective that, bias, I suppose, is the best way of saying it. I never questioned that. I never questioned that it was just men, that men's history, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? The issue with that is it's not that we were only given men's history. The issue is that we weren't also given women's history, and that women weren't given a voice because women weren't written into those history books because they weren't seen as relevant. And the interesting thing is, actually, if you look at it in the bigger picture of it, we only suppress that which we feel is very powerful and likely to cause us fear. Fear makes us suppress things. And why are women suppressed? Because there must be a power there that's feared. There must be a power in us women that is feared. And Sinead O'Connor spoke about that. She did not sugarcoat her words. She just came out and she said it as it is. And through her horrendous life experience, she gave voice and gave words to things that us women could, like in Ireland, couldn't have even dared to speak of or think of. And I feel as an Irish woman, I don't feel like I ever really gave that much time because it was too dangerous to. And it's not that I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to think about that because that's dangerous. It wasn't that at all. It's like, look what happens when you speak out. She's a crazy lady. The media, before I ever questioned what comes out in the media, before I ever questioned the bias behind it, before I questioned the agenda behind a lot of it, you kind of just take what's at face value. If you've lived a life where you've never really questioned the information that you're being given, then you kind of just go with the flow and you believe whatever you're given. And I will say, back then, I probably did that to a certain extent. And so, yeah, at one point I was like, God, Sinead O'Connor's really crazy. Like, do you know what I mean? And, well, we won't go there. And actually, in my more evolved brain, let's say, over the last couple of years, I can see how she was completely vilified. And really what that was doing was that was sending a message subconsciously to all the other women of Ireland to say, look what happens when you speak up. Look at what happens when you speak out. And there's a huge self-silencing that we do as Irish women, I feel. And this is very new for me to become aware of. It is very new for me to tip into, and it's very uncomfortable for me to tip into, because I myself, who have at a very young age experienced abuse, for me personally, I've self-silenced, and in my world, the self-silencing didn't actually come about because of what happened to me as a child. It actually came about because of the way it was handled by extended family members, and the lack of acknowledgement of my truth being swept under the carpet and favoured for the person who committed the act, and this is not uncommon at all in our world. Those people who suffer at the hand of somebody else are usually the ones who have to self-silence because we don't want to bring shame on our family. We don't want to bring discomfort and pain on our family. We don't want to be the ones who are causing the problems. We don't want to be the ones who are the troublemakers by bringing up this stuff. And it's insane because I'm doing a lot of reading about Bessborough House. I'm doing a lot of reading about the Tune Mother and Baby homes. And so much of this information is coming out at the moment. It's been out for years, but it's coming into my world. And I find it really interesting that it's really striking a chord with me. I'm like, what is this all about? And it really is about, for me personally, what I feel it's about, or at least at the moment where I feel it's taken me, is this notion of self-silencing. And I will say that Sinead O'Connor didn't do that. She didn't self-silence at all, which is why she made people feel, well, she didn't make people feel, but it's why people felt so incredibly uncomfortable around some of the topics that she spoke about, or around some of the themes and the things that she said. Why? Because it's poking at something inside of ourselves, right? You know, as somebody personally who has struggled with not wanting to be here on so many occasions throughout my life, and it's something that I've really personally struggled with in my life. I'm only starting to talk about that over the last year or so. Sinead O'Connor openly spoke about her struggles with wanting to be here. And what's really interesting is my life quite at the moment, currently, I'm actually really happy and really content. Life is going really well at the moment. It's just very calm, which is really, really nice. But something happened last night and it really, really, really took me down. And I felt really emotional. I felt really, I started to turn on myself out of nowhere. I was like, why am I turning on myself? So this is something that for me personally, when I haven't wanted to be here, this has been part of the slippery slope of the struggle. My mind will go towards my shortcomings, my failings, inverted commas, my perceived shortcomings, my perceived failings, my the areas of inadequacies in my life. This is very much my Virgo energy kind of turning on itself. I'm a Virgo sun, so this is my Virgo energy nearly turning on itself. It's like you haven't perfected your life, you know. I know you can't perfect your life anyway, but this is just an energy that I have to kind of continuously work with. And then all of a sudden I noticed myself like absolutely lambasting myself, like really being self-critical, really tearing myself down, really being hard on myself, saying awful things to myself. And it was really, really hard. And then I was like, okay, I became conscious in the middle of all this and I was like, this is familiar. You've been here before. What is happening? Why are you turning on yourself? Like, life is good right now. It's not perfect, but it's good right now. So when I had time to sit with it, what I realized was I had been feeling into Sinead O'Connor, feeling into her death. I had been watching videos and interviews that she had done years ago, and in recent times as well, you know, talking about being a woman, talking about being a woman in Ireland, talking about her own life, her own history, talking about her mental health, talking about her struggles with wanting to be here, about her son's death recently as well. And what I realised was I resonated with so much of it. I just resonated with so much of it. And I could feel the depth of her pain. And I realised, you know, there's so many of us out there that feel that depth of pain. And if you speak openly about it, it's uncomfortable for other people because other people, first of all, people don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to handle it. You know, we want to make things better for other people. And if we can't make things better for other people, we ourselves feel uncomfortable and like we've failed. So there's like this knock-on effect. And I guess when I was looking at the video for the different videos, like she was really in pain in some of these videos, and it just I understood it. I just understood it. I was like, oh my God, no, I haven't been in those depths of pain and despair and made a video about it publicly, but my God, could I totally resonate with where she was at. You know, I literally, some of the stuff that she was saying and the pain that she was in, I was like, I get that. I understand why she's saying that. And the sad thing is when you're in the middle of those storms, you don't allow yourself to believe that it can be any other way. It's literally like you turn on yourself. It's literally like you focus on all of your inadequacies and how you failed as a human, and then you turn on yourself. Like, imagine the most critical abusive parent and imagine that you become that to yourself and you literally tell yourself that you're just an absolute waste of a human being. Honestly, for me personally, that's where I've been before. And they were the conversations that she was having over these, whether it was Twitter or Facebook or different videos or whatever she was releasing and doing. And like, part of me was like, do you know what? Like, fair play. I'd not seen these before, but I was like, do you know, a part of me was like, fair play to you, because you're showing people what it looks like behind the scenes when you get into that place. And while most people will look at that and go, she must be insane, I feel like other people who have felt that pain and been in that place will look at it and go, oh my God, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Somebody else feels like this. Now, does that mean that we should all just go Instagram freaking crazy and start publicizing the crap that goes on behind the scenes? No. But at the same time, I don't know. You know, there is a place for it for sure. I don't know what that is, and I don't have an answer for it, because, you know, social media really only publicizes the best parts. You know, we don't get to see the crappy parts. But that's also life. You know, people don't go around the streets rolling around in tears, floods of tears. That's normally done at home and in private. Does that mean it's right or wrong? I don't know. I really don't know. But what I will say is that somehow, looking at those videos, I knew that the depth of the pain that I've been to, I'm not alone. Even though I know I'm not alone, somehow seeing somebody else in that place helped me go, do you know what? The times that you feel like you look crazy when you're going through this stuff, like, yeah, it does look crazy and it's horrendous. But seeing somebody else's pain being the same as yours, you're like, wow, like that's more common, not normal, but more common than is maybe publicized. Why am I saying all this? I am saying it because I know there's other people going to listen to this and they're going to get it. I guarantee there's people who will get that. The next part of what I wanted to talk about and speak to was cycles and astrology as well. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I had a client ring me up a couple of weeks ago and basically say, or a potential client ring me up and basically say that one of the things I do, she struggles with anxiety, right? Like a lot of the people who come to me, whether it's Reiki or astrology or life skills training, whatever it is, they all struggle with stress or anxiety or emotional turbulence of some sort. Excuse me. And what we did was we had a look at her astrology. And like within nanoseconds, I could see straight away what was I'm not going to say that that's the baseline cause of what's going on for her, but it's an ingredient as to what was going on for her. And she had very, very, very strong Pluto and Scorpio placements in her first house of self in astrology. Pluto is life, death, rebirth, transformation, burn it to the ground, start again. Pluto intensifies and deepens whatever it touches and wherever it is. The first house in astrology is all about your physical self, but it's also about yourself also. These placements were also aspecting Mercury, which Mercury is about your mind and your communication. So I could tell straight off, this is a potential client. I hadn't met her before and I was like, okay, I can see straight off you're a very intense person. And the chances are people don't get that because the level of intensity that's normal for you at a baseline normal is not normal for other people because they don't have the same placements. And so with that in mind, it means that they just don't get that intensity. They don't get that understanding of the level and depth of that intensity, which therefore, in a lot of ways, probably makes you feel alone in that because it's going to be hard to find people that will resonate at the same level until you accept yourself. When you start to accept that intensity and the depth of intensity, and you start to see that as part of who you are and you stop battling it, then you start to bring in people who get it and who can resonate on that level. If you struggle with the intensity and the depth of it and you yourself don't accept it because you feel that it's not acceptable, you tend to attract in people who trigger that feeling of I'm not acceptable so that you can heal the feeling of not being acceptable. And I hope that this makes sense. I get it because I totally have this in my chart in a different way also. And the reason that this was really important was because this woman's she's on medication and whatever. And I was saying to her, like, you know, that's fine. And if it works for you, do it. That's, you know, do whatever, you know, medical stuff needs to be done. But just know that underneath it all, once you start to learn about who you are and why you are the way you are, instead of seeing that you've come here with some sort of what's the word, some sort of lack or some sort of punishment or some sort of whatever it is, you know, that you are the way you are. When you realize you've come in with a chart and has specific characteristics and traits, now you can start to work with the superpower of it. When you start to integrate and accept those parts of yourself, my God, it is so much easier to use those parts of yourself. We only fear that which we don't understand. And when we begin to understand it, then we don't need to fear it anymore. So a child who wakes up in the middle of the night and sees a big shadow on a wall and is absolutely petrified and is like, oh my God, it's a big monster. Mommy and daddy come in and they realize that it's like, you know, the shape of a teddy sitting on a desk that the light from the window is shining in past. And so this big monster type thing on the wall is actually just a shadow. And so what we fear before we understand it, when we understand what it is, we're like, oh, okay, I'm not afraid of that because I get it, right? And think about any fear you've had. When you begin to understand, you know, the fear behind it, it loses its power. And so what I'm saying is learning a little bit about your astrology, even your basic of basic astrology. You don't have to become an expert. That would take a lifetime to become an expert. I'm doing this year's and Jesus, there's so much I don't know. But what I'm saying is learn your basic astrology, or at least go to somebody and speak to somebody about your basic astrology so that you can see the certain parts of yourself that you are the way you are because you came in here to have that experience. And instead of feeling like you were lumbered with something, start to see what is the superpowers behind it. And that's the work that I do. I do 2-hour astrology sessions with people. And in those 2 hours, I could go on for hours and hours and hours more. But a lot of it is just to show you who you are, why you're here, what your strengths and your weaknesses are. What are your unique wounding? What did you come in to learn and understand? So that you don't feel a victim of your own life. So that's the astrology part. But the other part of the last little piece of what I want to talk today, because I know it's a long video, is about cycles. And specifically, if you have any Scorpio or Pluto type of energy in your chart, or any kind of 8th house placements in your chart, you're going to know this feeling of life, death, rebirth, and transformation. It's going to be a huge part of your life. If it is, then learning about the cycles is going to be so helpful and so nourishing to your soul. I'm Scorpio rising, excuse me, and I've got strong Pluto placements. And so for me, learning about cycles, about, you know, it, on a subconscious peripheral level, we all know that like the cycles are there. It rains and then it's sunny and then it's winter and then it's summer and then it's, you know, light and dark and left and right and up and down and la 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 la. Plants are seeded and then they grow and then they flower and then they die, right? We all know this, but actually if you're not consciously placing your awareness on it as an intention to actually see and take note of and record and become consciously aware of the cycles, they're not yet, they don't get, you're not activating that understanding. So it's in your peripheral, it's hanging around, but until you actually place conscious awareness on it, you're not actually activating the potency behind the understanding and the conscious awareness of it. And the reason I'm saying this is because, again, if you have a lot of Scorpio, Pluto placements, etc., and you're having a lot of transformative, intense, fearful, anxiety, type feelings, as though you don't have control or power, as though you feel powerless in your life, as though you feel a victim of your life, all these kind of things. Learning about the cycles is incredibly nourishing for your soul, because what you get to understand is this too shall pass. And that's why astrology can be really important, because if you look at your astrology and you see, oh, I'm having a big ass Pluto square at the moment, right, life is really fucking tough. So actually, you know, it's not that I'm turned into a crazy lunatic. It's actually that I'm going through a really tough astrological cycle. What does that mean? Well, that means it's going to pass soon. You know, it might pass in a couple of weeks. It might pass in a year or so. It depends on the transit. And depends on other transits and aspects as well. But the point of what I'm saying is, when like astrology teaches you that actually this too shall pass. Like it can only, like these transits go on for a certain period of time. And yeah, they might kick your ass, but they're kicking your ass to push you back into alignment. That's the most beautiful part of this. It's actually really kicking your ass to put you back into alignment, which is just like, how heavenly and divine is that? Like no placement, even the most malefic aspects and the most malefic transits that we can have, while really excruciatingly painful at times, are actually there to keep us pushing us back into track. And it's like, it's just, it feels so divine and heavenly guided, and it's awful at the time. But actually, when you realize that actually in behind that awfulness is something more beautiful and grand guiding you and pushing you, if you can only hang on, if you can only push through. And this woman that I spoke to when we were talking about the cycles, she totally got it. She was like, actually, do you know what? Yeah, that is what's causing my anxiety, because I'm afraid of things starting and I'm afraid of things ending. And I get that again because I'm Scorpio rising. So the reason I'm kind of saying all this is, you know, I look at Sinead O Connor and, you know, we don't know what her cause of death is. We can only speculate. But I know in her lifetime, there's on numerous occasions she just did not want to be here. And as I said, I resonate with that. And I will say that having had astrology in my life for the last couple of years, knowing that this too shall pass, even the most difficult of times, I've been able to hold on that little bit longer. And I've been really glad that I've held on and that I'm still here. And when we suffer with fear and anxiety and stress and all these different things in our life, when we can understand that it may be just an astrological transit that we're dealing with, or it may be part of our life mission to be able to understand that and move through it and gain the tools to move through it, then suddenly we can hang on a little bit longer. But when we feel that something lacks a sense of meaning and purpose, when we feel that our pain is just pain, and we feel that our struggles are just struggles and that they will never end and they'll just keep coming back around over and over and over again, it can be hard to hang on. It can literally be hard to hang on, because it's like, well, what am I hanging on for? You know, what is this all about? Like, and will it ever end? Will it ever get better? And so I suppose really what this video today is about, this very long video, is to say that hang on, you know, hang on. And at the moment, whether you realize it or not, if you're in any way connected in with following Sinead O'Connor's death, and if you're an Irish woman who's mourning the loss of an icon, or you're mourning the loss of a woman who stood up for your freedom and who's no longer here anymore, because actually that's kind of sad. Because she was able to put voice to things that us as women could never put voice to, and we wouldn't ever have dared to put voice to. She said things that none of us could have ever said. And we've lost a spokeswoman. We've actually lost an Irish spokeswoman. Whether you believed or whether you agreed, or whatever your feelings were about what she had to say, one thing that you cannot deny is that that woman spoke her truth and she spoke her voice. And regardless of the topics and themes that she spoke about, she, as a woman, I feel like she's like incredibly iconic of the feminine power and the feminine energy. She was a woman who, like, the feminine is wild and chaotic and untamable and unpredictable and powerful and forthright and protective, and, you know, all those things they're not a masculine energy. A masculine energy, yeah, masculine energy is protective, but in a whole different way. And I feel like Sinead O'Connor really embodied what it truly meant to be a female in your power. And like, yeah, maybe that means that it drives you fucking insane, because we have not been allowed to voice our femininity. We have had centuries and eons of being suppressed as women. And I'm not going into the feminist role of things, but really Sinead O'Connor showed women how to speak their truth. And also at the same time, we got to see the pushback as to what happens when a woman speaks her truth. She's vilified, she's made out to be a crazy person, she is isolated, rejected, pushed to the outskirts of a society, and therefore, yeah, you're going to go a bit freaking crazy, aren't you? If you're being ostracized from your own community for speaking the truth, like, that's going to drive you crazy, because if you know what your truth is and you're living in an inverted world that's telling you that you're wrong and people are actively standing against you when it makes no sense that they are, then yeah, you're going to feel a bit crazy. And I'm not saying I agree with everything or disagree with anything that Sinead O'Connor said. I haven't followed her enough to be able to comment on it. But I will say, we've had a massive loss, and it's a huge thing for women in Ireland. So yeah, I could go on for ages. I've been on here for 30 minutes. If you stay to the end, well done. Thanks for sticking with me. But I just wanted to, I just felt like I really needed to share that today. The importance of understanding our cycles, understanding our power, understanding that our pain is something that we're meant to work with, and to look at nature and look at the seasons, look at day turning to night, look at the seasons coming and going, looking at rain and then sunshine, and looking at how plants and flowers grow and then die, and how something new comes back in again. Looking at those seasons and changes, and knowing that this too shall pass, will hopefully help us weather the storm. And to also know that energetically right now, there's a lot of people collectively feeling a lot of pain and grief, not only for the death of Sinead O'Connor, but the death of what she stood for, and the death of the death of a spokeswoman for Irish liberation and freedom. And I feel like we're all going to feel that a little bit. I'm actually feeling emotional as somebody who genuinely, honestly, like, it's interesting. It's interesting that I've been feeling like this, because I honestly, as I said, she lived up the road from me. I used to see her in my local shop quite often. I didn't know much about her other than, I read part of her book, and I've seen her through the years, and I loved her when I was a kid. But yeah, there's something more. I can feel it. And I reckon if I'm feeling it, there's other people feeling it too. So anyway, going to sign off. I hope that this has been helpful. I don't know if it's just a big long ramble, but I would love to know, did anything from this land with you? How are you feeling about the whole thing? Let me know your thoughts and drop some comments below, and I'd love to hear from you all. Talk to you soon. Take care of yourselves.